Welcome everybody to the Life, Death and Happiness podcast. This podcast is all about real talks with real people. Why? Because some stories just need to be told. In each episode, I will sit down and talk with my guest about how it is to live with an incurable disease or terminal illness. But let me get this straight before we start. This is all about celebrating life. I'm your host, Daniel Cole. Welcome. Welcome to the newest episode of Life, Death and Happiness. And with me today, I have Kimberly Rising from the US, from California. And I have to say to begin with that we actually already recorded this episode. But there was a small problem because I tried to do it live in Chicago, where we met up with a bunch of other people at a meeting for people with Fanconi Anemia. It didn't work out so well because a lot of noise in that place, that hotel. But anyhow, welcome, Kimberly.
Thank you, Daniel. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're so welcome. It's my pleasure. So to start with, can you tell us a little about yourself and where you're from and what you do in life?
Sure. My name is Kimberly Rising. I was born in San Jose. It's nice to kind of grow up here. Your friends and your family are relatively close. So I enjoy not being too far away from them.
Mm-hmm.
And currently I work as a preschool and pre-K teacher. So it's a lot of hard work, but the kids are a lot of fun in the end.
Oh yeah, it can be really a blessing working with kids. I feel you. So can you tell me a little about, you're diagnosed with Fanconi Anemia. Can you tell me a little about what that is and when you was diagnosed?
Sure. So Fanconi Anemia is a rare genetic disorder that both of your parents carry I believe it's a recessive gene, and it has to do with your bone marrow. Your bone marrow it fails, and it's due to the decrease of all blood cells in the body, and it can affect many other organs or body parts depending on the severity of it.
That's pretty much sums it up. And when were you diagnosed with this one?
I was diagnosed in October of 1997.
1997, so you've known it for quite a few years, yeah.
Yes, quite a long time.
Yeah. So the first question we'll ask you is, and that may be not so specific, but anyway, how was it for you to grow up having FA?
It was definitely hard. When I was diagnosed, it was, where I'm at, there wasn't anybody that really knew it.
So it was new for all the local doctors too, yeah.
It was. I had gone to school and I was sick already. And when I went home, my mom had made an appointment, and I was seen by a doctor, and he looked at me, and I had no color in my skin or my eyes or anything, and so I had to get a lot of blood work done to just for them to say that I had aplastic anemia, not just FA, but just aplastic anemia, and was taken into the hospital. And they do this bone marrow biopsy where they stick this big needle into your hip.
I love that one. Yep.
Oh yeah. So I remembered them doing that. I was awake, and they had to hold me down because I wouldn't let them touch me, and it was very painful because usually we'd want that to be done when you're asleep, and they wanted to do it right then and there. So.
And so people who do not know about it, it is so painful. But I'm just happy that I can actually, or maybe I was too young at that time, but I don't remember it so much. But I hear this from everybody else who have tried it several times, that it just, it hurts.
It's very painful.
So you got to figure out that you have Fanconi anemia, and your doctors tried to figure out what it was. How did it affect you? getting a diagnosis like this?
I was 8 years old, so um, it didn't really affect me. It just, I knew at that age that now I can't go to school and I have to be in the hospital because I'm sick. And I have nurses that are going to be coming to poke me every, a couple of hours and all that thing. So it didn't really hit me until probably when I was an adult. It just right then and there, it was just a scary experience to be in a hospital. You're trapped. You can't go anywhere, and you're constantly being poked.
Okay, so it didn't affect you a lot like it has done some for some of the people I've been talking to. But each have a different case here. So it was the same for your friends and family. They didn't really react that much to it, or was it just how it seemed at that time?
I think for my parents, they probably it was really new to them, and they had a lot of things going on. My parents were being separated, so it was just kind of, it's not something that we focused that, oh, she has FA, and it's it comes with a whole bunch of other things. It's more like we're focused on, okay, well, she just needs a transplant and then she'll be fine. And I think that's how we looked at it.
Yeah, so there was a lot of other circumstances in your life back then that also took up a lot of your life and your thoughts. And the same goes for your parents, of course, with the divorce, yeah. So can you tell me that a lot of people with Fanconi anemia have been through bone marrow transplant and cancers and a lot of other stuff. What have you been through of these things, and when did that happen?
So not too much longer after I was admitted into Kaiser in San Jose, and had my Hickman put in, and which is a tube that goes through your chest so that they can deliver medication or take blood from there. So soon after that, I was transferred over to Stanford Lucile Packard Children's Hospital.
Yeah.
And that's where I received my chemo and full body radiation treatments.
Okay.
And chemo.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Please continue. Yeah.
Chemo is something where your hair kind of falls out. So I remember that my mom didn't shave my hair like some other moms do with their kids. She kind of put it in a ponytail and cut it off, and then instead of it falling off in like clumps, it came off in like one big giant. You could just peel it right off your head, and it looked like a nest. So my mom put it in a bag and saved it for me.
Oh, I actually remember that part from when I got my BMT. That my mom didn't do that at all. I don't think she really thought about it back then. But I can remember I was sitting in my bed. I was like, "Look, Mom, look what I can do to my hair," and she got all scared to begin with because I was just pulling out big chunks of hair. I thought it was funny as a kid, but not so much.
Yeah, no, it was scary. I didn't like people cutting my hair. I had really long hair, so the thought of it just coming off, it put me in of like, don't look at me, I'm ugly. I didn't like not having hair.
But I think that's for many girls, women, that is a big part about it's more normal for guys to be without hair, shaved hair. So I guess that. Yeah, I think I get that part.
And then when it came down to my full body radiation, I remember them putting me in like this kind of like a clear phone booth kind of a shaped box that you would either sit or stand in and be radiated that way.
How long was you in there? Can you remember that?
I don't remember. I think it might have been like maybe an hour or so, or however long it took, and then it was like 3 or 4 treatments. So within that week to 2 week span, and then I would have my transplant.
I'm asking because when I look back, as far as I can remember, it was a child mind. So I was 9 years old, like you were 8 years old back then. But to me, it seems like it took like a whole day. But it probably had probably only been a few hours or less. But my child memories is like, oh, it was the whole day. I was just laying there. I was laying down when they did that, but I couldn't move at all, and I was told to not move at all. But yeah, that is why I was kind of curious about how long it took.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I can do is I have all the paperwork that I've requested from different hospitals, but it would take me like a long time to really go through it and see how long, if it even said how many hours or if it just said like how many days I had the treatments on. So one of these days I'll look at it.
So you got that, excuse me for asking, but that hospital where you got the BMT, had they done any other Fanconi anemia patients back then?
So my doctor had one other Fanconi patient, and I had only met her maybe twice. It was very brief, it's kind of like, oh, hi, and then that was it. So I do think they did treat another Fanconi patient at Stanford. That was maybe she might have been transplanted maybe a year or two before I was.
Okay, so they had some experience.
Yeah, they had a little experience there, yeah.
Okay, it's better than nothing in the end, so. And it did go well, so after all. Did you suffer from any graft versus host afterwards? Or were you one of the lucky ones?
I was one of the lucky ones.
Oh, nice.
And I think that happens because if your donor is a complete match, especially if they're a sibling, you're less likely to get graft versus host disease. And so my donor was my brother, and we were a perfect match.
Oh, nice. I too got mine from my brother. Brothers are a good thing to have, by the way, now that I think about it.
Exactly. It's good to have that. So if you ever need another transplant, they're right there for you. The only complication I could remember, it wasn't really a complication, but maybe a week or so after I had been discharged, I had picked up an RSV infection and had to be hospitalized for 2 weeks. And what that entailed is that my lungs were being damaged, and I couldn't breathe or get enough oxygen and things like that. And I had to be in an isolated room. And in my room, we had this box, this clear plastic box that was only big enough to sit on top of your bed. And you could only sit in it. You couldn't really do anything. And that would give you medication and specialized air for about 3 hours a day. And I would have to stay in that. And so most of the time, since you can't really move around, I would have to fold up, into a pretzel or something, and then take a nap.
Oh, never heard about that before. Do you know if that have affected your lungs in your adult life too?
It might have. I think growing up, our lung capacity is not as much as normal people. It's usually about half. And I really worked hard when I was a kid to try and do more things than what my body probably wanted me to do. And I think my lungs did build up enough capacity to be able to do those things. As an adult, though, I feel like my lung capacity has gotten worse, and I don't know if it's because I've been sick a lot more with bronchitis and things like that. And I think those last couple of times I got sick really damaged my lungs.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I was curious because people do not know that, but at the meeting where we were at, it was a Fanconi Anemia Research Found meeting. We talked a little about the lungs and if it could have any lasting effect on us grown-ups. I didn't talk to you about that. I just wanted to share with you here that I talked to some of the doctors from Brazil, and they have had more than 100 FA patients in this one clinic where they had asthmatic bronchitis when they grew up with it. So it is in fact very normal to have these kind of things. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what I pretty much have. It's it's when my asthma gets inflamed like that, it's like a bronchitis. And I'm on steroids, inhalers, nebulizers. I'm on everything.
I see, but that makes so much sense, actually. So going back to you got your BMT and you have some problems afterwards with your lungs. And excuse me if I didn't listen well enough before. Were you homeschooled these years, or did you still go to
Um,
work?
so when I was diagnosed, I was in third grade, and I had to miss the rest of that year.
Hmm.
I didn't have anybody bring in schoolwork or anything like that, so I didn't catch up. Um, I had to repeat the year once I went back to school.
Okay, then I did remember it correctly from the first try of making the episode. So I kind of want to get a little bit into that, but that's just how did it affect you, or what did you think about it back then that you had to kind of leave your classmates and take the year over again?
It was hard to just kind of not have anybody around. I don't really remember seeing my dad or my brother that much, and they probably were there, but I don't remember seeing them. And it's usually just me and my mom. And I think my friends did visit maybe once, maybe twice,
Hmm.
and that was it. So our relationship kind of just took off from there. We weren't there. We weren't hanging out together. We weren't playing together. So when I went back to school, they were in the next grade ahead of me,
Hmm.
and had new friends, and so it was kind of hard to get new friends.
I can imagine that. I mean, even when as a kid you're often insecure, anyhow, no matter what the circumstances are, and have to start over like that. Yeah, I get that can cause some problems. I actually got to go back to my class, the class I came from, but I did have a lot of issues too, because to me it was like I was missing some of the what you call it social skills because I
Hmm.
was away from almost a year. As you mentioned, you are going out, you lose contact to a lot of them. Only talk to regularly to a very few friends and classmates. So it can be kind of difficult as a child to go back there and try to, you know, just get back into the groove, get to, you know, a lot of things have happened in their life too while you were away. So,
Exactly.
so yeah, I do feel that. I don't know what the right solution is for other people if they should, as you did, you know, take the same year over again, or they should just continue in the old class. But no matter what you do
Well,
in such a situation, it's difficult.
yeah, I think now they have programs where they get you a child life specialist,
Hmm.
and that's a person who kind of walks you through the treatments, also helps you catch up with your schoolwork, make sure that you're caught up emotionally, physically, and mentally, and all that, so that you can go back to school and and kind of smooth and a lot easier than most.
I think that's a good idea, and I'm glad they actually do the same here in Denmark too now. But it's a lot of years ago since you got your BMT and I got mine, so it's good that things have changed for the better, and they're thinking more about how to help you after the transplantation too.
Mhm.
So you got back to school, and then everything was pretty much okie doke from there, or
Yeah, I mean, I went back to school. I didn't have any complications or anything like that. You get like the common cold and stuff like that, but I did pretty good.
so as soon as your count was at the right level, you also start to live a more normal life.
Exactly.
Exactly. Cool. So, and just so this is also I mentioned this just because we have some younger people who gets diagnosed with Fanconi anemia, with cancer, plastic anemia, and stuff like that, leukemia. When you go through something like this, did you go out and get an education? Did you stay through school? How did you spend those years as a young adult?
Um, as a young adult, I graduated high school. I got a job. I started college, and I did a lot of volunteer work. So I was very busy. I didn't limit myself to anything because I had FA, and I kept myself very busy doing lots of different things. I didn't go to school for like medical degrees or anything that had to do with me having Fanconi. I just kind of took it as I went, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but I ended up going for my early child life education,
Hmm.
and that's where I ended up with.
So you did the normal thing that most people actually do when they don't suffer from anything.
Exactly. I just continued like life was normal, like there was nothing wrong with me.
And I keep repeating that also in some of these episodes because to me it's very, very important that people remember that. Because as far as I know, most of the older people with Fanconi anemia, it doesn't matter if they've had a bone marrow transplantation or stem cell transplantation or anything else. I mean, no matter what, those that usually get the oldest have had tried to live a fairly normal life. So I think that's an important lesson for everybody that you need to plan for your life instead of just not giving up. But some people just don't think it's worth it. But it really is because what I mean, I don't know how old were you told you would get when you were a child? Did they ever talk about that?
Sorry, can you say that again?
How old was you told that you would probably get when you were a child? Did they talk about that part
Oh,
about? Yeah.
I think they said that I would be maybe 20.
Okay. Yeah. I started out being told that nobody had become a teenager yet with that disease. I mean, and I hear a lot of these stories that people are told that, oh, you will only be 16 or 20 or 25. But right now, I think the average lifespan is 33 years, I think. So it's pretty important
Yeah,
to
about
actually
that.
plan. I mean, it doesn't matter if you have a disease, you still want to be able to afford to either get your own place or at least buy the stuff you want, buy a car, go out with friends, go on vacation, whatever you feel like, whatever your hobby is, whatever you love in life, you still need to plan for that so you can fill your life with good stuff.
Exactly. You want to just be able to live your life, and in order to do that, you just have to put Fanconi kind of not on the back burner, but just kind of tucked away a little bit enough so that you can do those things.
Yeah, don't let that part control your life. It's only a part of you. I want to get into a topic that we always talk about here, and I usually say that it's kind of I don't feel comfortable talking about the topic, but I have talked about it a lot now, so it's become better. I want to talk a little about death and the sort of death. What are your
Okay.
thoughts regarding that?
I try not to think about death and what that means for me. Having FA means that I have a shorter life than most, but that doesn't mean it has to be that way. Sure, there are times that I sit and think about what happens when you leave this earth, and does your spirit stay behind, or does your subconscious mind still live?
Hmm.
But I try not to think about those things because it kind of like I don't know, it just makes your mind think even more and go into different tangents of what could it be, or what would this be, and I don't want to think what that could be compared to if you're going to be completely, almost like if you're being erased or forgotten. So if I don't think about it that way, then I'm still here, and since I'm not dying, I don't like to think about death, and I want to think about living life right now because I'm living.
And as far as I remember, you're doing good right now, right?
Yes.
Yes, exactly. So when we talk about death, it's like a stigma for many people. And I agree with you that it's not something that we should concentrate and focus too much on. I mean, if you want to stay sane, if you want to live your life, you can't stop up all the time and be like, oh, what if I die tomorrow? I mean, I don't believe that's healthy for anybody, no matter the circumstances. So, have you talked to your? You said you were close with your mom.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever had this talk? I mean, as an example, I've had that talk after the Orlando meeting within the Fanconi Anemia Research Fund. I had that long talk with my wife. It finally dwelled on her that maybe I wouldn't be here forever. And I didn't feel like, yay, let's talk about this. But afterwards, I felt it was a good thing that we have talked it through. But have you talked to some of your close ones, your loved ones about it?
No, I haven't.
Hmm.
Um, I think my family has enough to deal with,
Hmm.
whether it's me or their own problems, um, and since I'm not going down that road yet, I don't feel like it's necessary that we need to talk about it. So we
So,
just don't.
yeah, you would cross that road when you get to it and not spend a lot of time thinking about it now.
Correct.
That takes us into kind of the next big topic about happiness and how to live life. So I want to ask you the short question to begin with about what is happiness to you?
Mm, Happiness is just being able to live and breathe. Maybe just being out in nature, and whether it's you know enjoying yourself at the beach and you're listening to the waves rolling and you crash on the shore, or you're taking a good nice long walk in the hills, and you can hear the trees kind of swaying back and forth, or maybe you're kind of camping out underneath the stars and you can see the stars kind of just almost like they're painting the night sky. Just something that's just peaceful. It doesn't have to be a lot. It could just be, sitting outside your front porch and listening to the air and the wind chimes. Just that kind of like little things makes me happy.
Hmm. Yeah, I can admit that I was on your Facebook page and I could see that you are camping. I was like, oh, that's so cool. I mean, in theory, I would love to do that sometimes, but I just it's not really something we're doing around my my with my friends or my family and stuff like that. So is it something you do often?
Um, I do like during the summer. I volunteer for a camp called Camp Okaizu for children going through cancer.
Hmm.
And so we have cabins that we live in, so it's not like tents or anything. But we do sleep on a deck under the stars, and we have a lot of things that the kids can do to get away from all those things that are hospital related and family problems. And it's something that I was a part of when I was a kid, and
Hmm.
it really helped me. And I enjoy giving back to the community every summer, and it really provides respite, recreation, peer support, and mentoring. And it really just makes your life more enjoyable and ready for the rest of the year.
It sounds pretty awesome. But when you talk about it like that, I'll be like, oh man, I want to do that too. I have one of my friends who he does often. He's a very you know nature loving person. He's outside a lot, and I try to be out in the forest with him, sleeping at the night, just to try it out. And I thought that was pretty cool. But even though I promised myself that I would do that again some other times, I never got back to it actually. So talking about these about going outdoors and being at this camp, I'm kind of. Is it okay if I ask some questions because that's not something we really have around here, and I think the idea about it is extremely cool. I mean, as a grown up, I went to something called Camp Sunshine. You know what that is, but a lot of people don't, and that is also a place where they have camps for cancer children and children with Fanconi Anemia and stuff like that. And as a adult, I thought it was kind of cool. But you went there as a child too, to some of these things.
Yes, so I think I started going in 1999, and I've only missed 2 years since.
Cool.
Yeah, I go I went every year until I was old enough to be a counselor, and then I went anywhere from 2 to maybe 3 or 4 times in the summer. And they're week-long sessions, so you're there for an entire week. They have 4 weeks for the siblings, so the siblings can go just by themselves without their oncology patient siblings, and then the oncology patients have their own week, so that they get a break. So it's parents getting a break from their kids, and the kids getting a break from everybody else. But
I
it's
like
really
the
nice.
idea about that, because people often tend to forget the family and the siblings when something happens in the family.
That is very true, because we do a staff training, and we watch a video on how siblings feel, and it's really emotional.
Because they're still a big part of this. I remember when I was at the Camp Sunshine, I was sitting down talking to some of the younger children. They were around 10, and one of them talked about she didn't really sleep well at night. And I was like, how come? I mean, that's a fairly honest question. I was like, is there something wrong? And she was like, but I have a lot of nightmares. And it turned out she had these nightmares because she was afraid that something would happen to her. Because when her brother would need bone marrow transplantation one day, she was a perfect match. And she was so afraid of something happened to her, because if something bad happened to her, it could probably also kill her brother.
Oh.
So that was, I mean, it broke my heart. I was like, oh, sweet child. That's not something you should think about at your age at all.
Exactly. You shouldn't have to think about that, and I think that's why we have that program, so that both the siblings and oncology patients can have their own time, because siblings weeks is a little bit different. They have discussion groups, and they sit and they talk about their feelings, their fears, anything that they want to talk about, just so that everybody who's there can relate, and they can feed off of each other, and it really helps them to kind of let it out.
So yeah, that goes out to all the families here. If you're a patient with Fanconi Anemia, cancer, and something else, think about your brothers and your sister, your family, because it's not only you who go through the hard times. For them, it can be pretty difficult too. I know from one of my brothers, the one I got my BMT from, that my oldest brother has also had some issues, health-related issues, and he was the middle brother, and he was all well and did fine in school, but he has also been left to himself a lot for the very, very same reason, because my parents either had to help me out or help my oldest brother out. So it's important to think about the family as a whole, and not just the child or the children who's sick or suffering for something.
I agree. And it's kind of nice, because within the last couple of years that I've been going to this camp, there is another Fanconi family who has a daughter and a son that both have Fanconi, and they do attend the camp sometimes. So it's nice to see that there are families with Fanconi that are relatively in the area that can attend this camp, so they kind of get that fulfillment that they need.
Definitely, and you do need a break away from everything every once in a while. I can't remember why, but it's just a small thing that after my BMC, I think it was half a year after, we got some kind of a scholarship to go on a mini vacation somewhere within our country, and we went there, and we were 5 in our family, and we actually ended up having so many big discussions, yelling at each other and stuff like that, because we have been through so much, and we could finally sit down, relax, and then came out all the tension. And we came back, and they actually, at the hospital, were like, oh, was it a good vacation? And my mom and dad was like, yeah, not so much as we hoped for. And they were like, oh, that's quite normal. I mean, you go through so much that everybody is trying to be calm and collected, and you have to wrap your head around getting through these things. So when you suddenly feel like you're able to sit down and relax, then comes out all the emotions you have had built up for such a long time.
That's very right.
So, but back to happiness. That was a little sidetrack here. I was just very
It's
interested
okay.
in because I think it's a really good idea, and I do hope that a lot of people will actually say yes when they get the opportunity to go these places, especially when they're kids, but also as a grown up, it can be very good to meet other people in the same situation that can relate to you. So you talked a little about what make you happy, go camping and all that stuff, but do you have other things in your life that you do, or you do whatever you want to feel better or to lift up your spirits and stuff like that?
Um, I might go for like a walk, listen to music, maybe paint or draw. Those are kind of things that just kind of keep my mind uh, off the bad and
Mm-hmm.
kind of redirects me to the good. Always helps to watch something that's funny, like maybe a little bit of I Love Lucy always does the trick. You
Mm-hmm.
know, that crazy lady is so funny. Always puts a smile on your face and makes everything kind of melt away.
And nothing helps like laughing.
Right. It always helps a lot.
But you told me you're painting and you're drawing.
Yeah, I like to paint and draw. I like to paint, I guess, mainly like landscapes,
Mm-hmm.
and I draw. I try to draw almost anything where I was trying to do like a portrait or landscapes or anything that I can think of or I see that I want to try and to sketch down.
Oh, cool. I've never been that good at these things. I always wanted to, but yeah, like most people, you have to actually practice to become better. I know that's kind of the deal. Have you
Yeah,
done that since you were a child, or?
yeah, I love to draw ever since I was a kid, and I took art classes all through school, as many as that I could take.
Oh, cool. That's actually kind of cool. I mean, I love when people have these skills because, I mean, I'm not, I'm not going to art museums and stuff like that. But I always admire when people are good at painting and drawing because that process of creating, I have I imagine that that can also take. It must be very good for yourself mentally to just sit there and be so focused on this task you have.
Yes, especially like if you're in the mood for it, it really can just kind of ease your mind. But if you're not too much in the mood and you're trying and you try too hard, it almost has like the opposite effect, and you get
Mm.
really frustrated. So you just have to be in the right mind to want to be doing it, or maybe even just um, the type of atmosphere you're in.
I think I get that. I used to do music back when I was younger, and I kind of miss that. I don't miss the whole going on tour and being drunk and doing stupid stuff, but I really miss the creative process of sitting down and creating the music and the lyrics and all that stuff. I mean, I thought that was a wonderful way to take my mind off everyday life. So I imagine that is the same when you paint and draw.
Yeah, it has this pretty much the same effect.
Hmm. So people get creative. That actually helps a lot of people. I know that as a fact. I know a lot of people have been talking about that within the FA community and other people that if you're feeling down, also think that is something they actually tell you if you suffer from depressions and stuff like that. That it always helps to get creative because you're so much engaged in what you're doing when you do these things that it takes your mind to a different level, and it's just good for your mental health. Actually,
It really is. A lot of people try like if painting on paper or drawing on paper isn't working, you can try painting an object, like going to a pottery store and picking out a piece of pottery and you're painting that. I could do that and spend 4 hours or all day, or it could be more than one session just painting one particular piece, because I always want to change the color or the texture or do a particular detail. You get really into it and it just takes your mind away from everything around you.
Are you into art in general?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like a lot of art.
So I have to ask you, I can imagine some people, we were just, as I mentioned, in Chicago, and we went for a walk to see what was nearby worth seeing. It was all this big bean. What is it called? Space bean, big glass bean.
It was like, yeah, I just called it the bean, but it's like it's the bean at the Millennium Park.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So is that good art? I don't know if the faintest thing about art. I'm just curious.
I guess, yeah, it is good art in the sense that the reflection that it gives like a different shape of like the sky, and then the way that the buildings kind of bounce off of it and wrap around the sides. So on a day where it's not crowded and there's not so many people, probably in the early morning would be the best time. You really get that whole effect of the city, kind of wrapping around that bean and shaping it and the different sky colors. It's a really cool effect that it gives, especially when you're underneath it. It's got all these different textures of the way it hits, because the bean is bent, and you can't see yourself, but it has like these circular effects, and it's almost like you're being like in a trance or something.
When we were there and people came back to the hotel talking about this big bean, I felt like, are you serious? You are going for a walk to watch a giant bean? But then we got there and I actually found it very interesting too. I was like, it was kind of a shame we were on a tight time schedule at that time to go back to some meetings.
Yeah, that was hard. But I mean, I think one of the times that I went out twice. So the second time we went out for very long because then it started to rain. So that was kind of a downer, but it was good to kind of get a second look at it.
Yeah, I could imagine that. So even though I usually say I'm not so much into art, sometimes anyhow, when I'm actually there, it's a different experience. I don't sit at home planning to go to museums. I usually don't. That's probably the last on my list. I usually go for the place where I can eat good food. That's my thing. But on occasion when I actually get there and I'm with some other people and they'll be like, "Oh, let's go see this," I actually tend to enjoy it a lot. So I love these kind of experience when you're out seeing the world.
Yeah, and art can be. It doesn't even have to look like art. It could be just the way that the building is built, the texture, the angle of it, what's reflecting off of it. It gives it a sense of art almost.
Yeah, kind of. It was my first time in Chicago, and I kind of admired that mix of all the new buildings. It tends to not work at all, but I do think that it worked very, very well. It gave some kind of a special atmosphere that I really, really enjoyed. Old with the new. I mean, where I come from in Copenhagen, it's totally forbidden to build any kind of skyscrapers, any type of high buildings. I mean, I think it's when they're more than 8 floors, they're not allowed to do it in the mid city, because they want to keep the look of an old town. So I'm not used to that. So I like that about the skyline and also the older buildings mixed in between. I thought that was kind of cool.
It is pretty cool, but then again, I understand how they want to just keep it old and still have that feeling. And I actually really enjoy just being able to see how the cities are without being changed so much.
But I think it's also dependent on what you're used to. Because I'm used to not having, so I don't have that kind of skyline at all around here. So I'm not used to that. So for me, the older buildings is normal. So when I get there, I'll be like, oh, that's kind of interesting, the mix of it here.
That's true.
The grass is always greener on the other side, you know.
It definitely is. It's definitely not as green over here.
Oh yeah, you're from California. Maybe it's not a lot, but I think I've been to California and especially LA 6 or 7 times by now, and I really enjoy the whole area because of the weather and the way things look. I know that there's, as you mentioned, it's not very green at all, but you got other things going for you in that area.
Yeah.
I kind of envy you that. I would never move away from Denmark, but I used to say that if I had to someday, that would probably be the place I would pick. but when I'm there, in general, I like how people are. I mean, I've been to New York, I've been to Atlanta, I've been to New Orleans, and many other places in the U.S. I've been to Paris, London, Taipei, Nairobi. I've been to many places, but the only place where I have been, where I felt like, oh, I could actually feel at home here. That has been some parts of LA. So, and then other people who goes there tells me, oh, it's such a shitty city. It's not even a real city. I mean, especially people from New York says these kind of things, but I kind of like it. I
Yeah,
enjoy
I
it.
mean, there's different parts of California, and some parts, are a lot nicer than others, and are livable.
Yeah, I haven't been to where you're from. I've been in the Bay Area and LA mostly, San Diego. Yeah, I don't know why. I just think you have a good thing going on in California.
Well, I'm not gonna argue there.
I had a feeling since you're still living there. Yeah, I seem to always get off track and talk about different things while doing this podcast, but I think it's interesting because it also gives a different flavor of what's going on in people's lives, and we get to talk about all these things. So I'm kind of I have to ask you, do you have any advice for people who comes into a similar situation as you have been in, either getting diagnosed? It doesn't matter if they're diagnosed as children or when they're adults, but do you have any advice about how to approach this quote unquote new life?
I would say, don't be afraid and to always fight. Don't let the little things get in the way of you living your life, and don't put yourself in one of those bubbles. You can't be stuck to one thing. You have to be able to break free from it. And just because we have FA doesn't mean that it has to consume us. And even if FA does have a lot of things that come with it, whether it's cancer or mobility issues or anything like that, just keep being positive and look to the future. Look to what you can kind of grab onto and just don't let go. Don't be afraid to run or kick a ball or graduate from college, get married, and have a family. Just be in the moment. Don't worry about the future, what it's going to hold for you. You just have to kind of, it's like you're hopping on a train and it's a train going through life, and you get off on the stop site you need to get off, and you just kind of let it take you there.
When you think about these things, I also come to think about quality of life often, because to me that's very important to figure out for yourself what the quality of your life is. I've chosen not to drink and smoke any longer because we're told that several times a day almost. They keep shouting at us, all the doctors, don't drink, don't smoke, don't go out in the sun, don't do these things, it's not good for you. Sometimes it reminds me of that psychiatry from South Park. Don't do the drugs, okay? I mean, we hear it all the time. Sometimes I sit there in the back with a little smile and be like, yep, pretty much sounds like that. And I know there's a reason for them doing that, but I mean, you have to figure out how, as you mentioned, you go through life, you have to get on the train and figure out where to get off and what to experience on the way. But you also need to figure out how to incorporate all these things into your life so you don't live a miserable life. I mean, if you feel like drinking a beer or smoking or anything, yeah, the correct answer is don't do it. But in reality, we all know how it is to be young and how it is to be social with other people. And sometimes it involves drinking and smoking. And of course, you can just cut all these parts out of your life. That's the right thing to do. But in reality, it doesn't work for most of us to just let go of everything. I get it. I have quit both smoking and drinking, but to me, I love the sun. That is the one thing that gives me so much energy. So there's no way in hell I'm gonna stay out of the sun for the rest of my life. Ain't gonna happen no matter what.
You were saying that you love the sun, and you can't. You always need to be a part of it. And for me, as much as I love the sun, my body has become almost allergic to it, and this just being out for maybe a minute or two, my skin starts to get irritated and itchy. So the least amount of sun is the best, and if that means that I'm in the shade most of the time, or if I'm wearing sunscreen and arm guards to kind of keep my body from being completely in the sun, that's what I have to do.
Yeah, it's also, that's the right thing to do in your case. Definitely, if you have a reaction like that. No doubt about it. I'm just saying that you shouldn't go drink, smoke, and all these kind of things. But you also have to figure out with yourself what matters. I mean, you can go the whole life without even a beer, or you can say it's all right to have a few every now and then. But you need to figure things out for yourself. You need to be smart, but also you also need to live the life you want to.
I agree.
So we are almost at the end, but I just want to say that we both, me and my wife, and especially my son, appreciated the meeting in Chicago a lot, and he almost got a new auntie in you.
I know, I miss him already.
Oh, it was so nice to see his reaction to you and some of the others. That yeah, it was fun having him there. Totally new experience for me being at such a meeting, talking with other people for FA, talking to doctors, and then having my son with me. That was like mind blowing to me.
It's an experience, but I'm glad you brought him, and I'm glad everybody was able to kind of enjoy him, and I'm glad you were also able to enjoy the experience as well.
Oh, definitely. That's like, I just love the thought. Even though I know we meet under some circumstances that is not so great because we have a disease that's not doing anything good for us. But I still kind of like the idea of him when he grows up. He can actually go with us to these kind of meetings, so he can meet people from all over the world. I hope that could broaden his mind a bit about the world we live in, actually. But yeah, that's that's a parent thing to think about these kind of things.
Sure is.
Now, here by then, I would like to ask you if there's anything you have forgot to tell us about yourself, anything you want to share here by the end?
I think we kind of went through it. I mean, I know I talked a little fast, so I might have skipped little details, but I don't think it's that important that I go over every little detail.
No.
But there's this poem that really that I found when I was in 6th grade, and it really meant a lot to me. And it has to do with just kind of making sure that you cherish your life and not taking what life has to offer for granted, and to reach out and grab it. And it's really short, and I just want to say it. It's by so the poem is called Dreams, and it's written by Langston Hughes, and it goes kind of like this. Hold fast to dreams, for if dreams die, life is a broken bird that cannot fly. Hold fast to dreams, for when dreams go, life is a barren field frozen with snow. That's it.
I like that. And on that note, I think I will say thank you so much for joining us. And
Thank you for having me.
It was a pleasure. And I'm sorry we had to do this twice because of all the noise in the lobby at the hotel. Kind of a bit embarrassing.
It's okay.
So glad we could find time to it. But thank you so much. And to everybody out there, I hope you enjoyed the episode. So have a great week, have a great day. And wherever you are when you're listening to this, go out and make the best of the day you have today. Take care of your loved ones and take care of yourself. Thank you for listening to tonight's episode of Life, Death and Happiness. If you like this, please do us a big favor and head over to iTunes, Overcast, Spotify, or wherever you're listening to this podcast from, and subscribe to us. If you also give us a good rating, it will help us a lot reaching much more people. So I will appreciate that a lot too. Also, you can of course follow us on Facebook and Twitter and help us spread the word through there. My name is Daniel, and thank you so much for listening.